Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the podcast. And today I'm going to go my review of AEW's Dynamite. Starting off the evening, we'll go to our first match of the night. It is Penta versus Jay White. I thought it was a good match to start Dynamite. Back and forth matchup between Penta and Jay White, with Jay White keeping the pace of the match. Jay and Penta then both exchange in the middle of the ring, with Penta hitting a pump handle slam on Jay White for a near fall. Juice Robinson then hits Penta with a ring, which allows Jay White to hit the Blade Runner on Penta, pins him for the 3, and your winner of the match is Jay White. After the match, Jay White grabs a microphone. He pretty much mocks MJF, says that he is the real world champion. Juice Robinson then grabs the microphone and said he's going to win the Dynamite Diamond Ring Battle Royal later on that night. Moving on from that, we have MJF backstage with Renee. MJF says that he will get the AEW World title back. He also mocks Juice Robinson. Then he's interrupted by the Acclaimed, Max Caster. And Max Caster is still wanting to join up with MJF to take down Bullet Club Gold. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night. It is an AEW Women's Title Eliminator matchup. It is Emi Sakura versus Shida. I thought it was a good match. Back and forth matchup between Emi Sakura and Shida. Sakura and Shida were both exchanging in the middle of the ring, with Sakura keeping the pace of the match. Sakura then hits a Tyler Driver on Shida for a near fall. Shida then hits a Katana, as well as a Falcon Arrow for a near fall, and then Shida ultimately hits the finish on Emi Sakura, pins her for the 3, and your winner of the match is Shida. Hats off to Shida for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we have an Adam Copeland rebuttal. Copeland talks about ending his career, or wanting to end his career, with Cage and teaming up with Christian Cage to end his career. He also talks about their friendship and how they met. He also talks about how he got started in wrestling with Christian, and that he had a lot of praise for Christian as well, so that he's one of the most underrated talents in professional wrestling. But he also says and states that he will never wrestle one-on-one with Christian or go after the TNT Championship. He also says when Nick Wayne and Luchasaurus pretty much desert Christian Cage, Adam Copeland will be there to pick him up. So it looks like Adam Copeland's not going to go after Christian in a one-on-one match or go after the TNT Championship. I think Copeland's just waiting in the balance right now to see what happens between Christian Cage, Luchasaurus, and Nick Wayne. Moving on from that, we have Wardlow versus Ryan Nemeth. This was a glorified squash match, just like how it has been for the past couple of weeks since Wardlow's been back. Wardlow was keeping the pace throughout the entire match. Wardlow then hits a powerbomb on Nemeth, and then the referee sounds for the bell, and your winner of the match is Wardlow. After the match, Tony Schiavone was trying to interview Wardlow and ask him why he has come back to AEW. And instead of Wardlow saying anything, he ends up putting up his arm, and on his wrist tape it says MJF. Again, hats off to Wardlow, but I don't really understand why he's going after MJF, but I will touch more bases on that towards the end of the podcast and why I believe he is going after MJF. Moving on from that, we have an Adam Cole and Roderick Strong video package. Again, this has kind of been the same thing that's been going on for the past couple weeks, where Adam Cole has been doing chores or trying to help out Roderick Strong around his home. This time he was making him coffee and peanut butter and jelly and stuff like that. And I think it's hilarious. But again, man, nobody really truly knows if Adam Cole had any involvement in the attack that happened to Jay White backstage, and if Adam Cole was or wasn't being the person wearing the devil's mask. I still do really believe that it was Adam Cole, though, in my honest opinion. Moving on from that, we have a Don Callis segment. Don Callis grabs a microphone. He mocks Jericho. Hobbs says that Jericho was his hero. Don Callis then hypes up Hobbs. Callis says that Fletcher had let them down. Fletcher comes out to the ring. He mocks Don Callis. Fletcher then says he's going to prove himself against Omega later on that night. Omega comes down to the ring. They get face-to-face, which pretty much leads into our next impromptu match. It is Kenny Omega versus Kyle Fletcher. I thought it was a good match. Back-and-forth matchup between Omega and Fletcher, with Omega keeping the pace of the match. Omega then hits a Hurricane Rana on Fletcher. Omega and Fletcher then both exchange in the middle of the ring, with Omega hitting a moonsault to the outside, taking out Fletcher. Fletcher then gets up, hits a devastating brainbuster on Omega for a near fall. Fletcher then launches Omega into the middle turnbuckle. That looked absolutely brutal. Omega then gets up, hits a V-trigger on Kyle Fletcher. Omega then also hits a powerbomb as well. Omega then hits another V-trigger. Fletcher then applies a Dragon Sleeper on Omega, but the hold is broken. Omega then hits a Snapdragon Suplex on Fletcher, which allows Omega to finally hit his signature One-Winged Angel on Fletcher. Pins for the 3, and your winner of the match is Kenny Omega. Hats off to Kenny Omega for getting the win in that matchup. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night. It is a return match. It's Lance Archer versus a jobber. Lance Archer has returned to AEW. This was a glorified squash match. Archer was keeping the pace throughout the entire match, if you want to call it that. He ends up hitting a choke slam on the jobber, and then he ultimately hits the finish on the jobber as well, pins him for the 3, and your winner of the match is Lance Archer. Hats off to Lance Archer for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we have Sting addressing the crowd. He's in the ring with Tony Schiavone. He talks about his past and what it's been like being a pro wrestler, being on the road, and how fun it's been for him in his career. He also talks about other legends such as Dusty Rhodes, Hogan, and Ric Flair, and how much Flair has helped him in his career. He also talks about winning the world title for the first time against Flair. I believe it was the Great American Bash in Baltimore. It was when he won the first World Heavyweight Championship. He also mentions retirement. Sting then talks about his first match in AEW. Sting says his last match in AEW will actually be Revolution 2024, and now after that will be the last time we see Sting competing in the ring. This is Sting pretty much beginning his retirement tour from here on out until we get to Revolution 2024. Man, it's going to be a crazy night. There's a lot of fans out there that are fans of Sting, myself included. Was I shocked by this? Not entirely. I mean, again, I will touch more bases on this towards the end of the podcast, but, Sting has had a hell of a career up to this point, man. I mean, everywhere he's gone has just been nonstop, pedal to the metal, insane career. Even in AEW, man, some of the stuff he's done in AEW has been absolutely incredible. So, again, I'll give my insight on Sting and how I feel about this whole retirement tour thing towards the end of the podcast and kind of touch base on how I feel about the whole thing and everything else like that. But again, definitely interesting to see what's going to happen next with Sting leading up to his retirement. Moving on from that, we have a Toni Storm segment. It was pretty much one of the video packages that Toni Storm debuted last week, or her silent films, if you will. This was Toni Storm debuting Gone with the Storm, which I thought was kind of cool. And honestly, I thought it was kind of hilarious because this is the second time they actually showed the silent film during a commercial break, which I thought was absolutely hilarious. And again, I'm a big fan of what AEW is doing with Toni Storm right now. I'm loving the character. I think it's absolutely great for both AEW and Toni Storm. Moving on from that, we have Nick Wayne and his mom sitting down with Jim Ross having an interview. Jim Ross tells Wayne that it's really hard to find friends in this business, especially what Nick Wayne has done to Darby Allin and how much Darby Allin has been a friend of Nick Wayne. Nick Mom then comments on the fact that she's really confused on why Nick Wayne did what he did against Darby Allin, and that Darby Allin was kind of like family. Nick Wayne then mocks Darby Allin, says that Darby continuously keeps stealing the spotlight away from Nick Wayne. After that, Christian Cage shows up. Then, him and Christian and Nick Wayne then both leave the interview with Jim Ross. Then the door closed, and then all of a sudden you hear all this commotion going on behind this door. The door gets, they open the door, and it's Christian Cage and Nick Wayne getting attacked by Darby Allin. And it looks like Darby Allin is going to get his revenge, if you will, on Nick Wayne and Christian Cage. Moving on from that, we have the Dynamite Dozen Battle Royal. It's the main event of Dynamite. It was a good match. Back and forth match with everybody involved. Max Caster and Juice Robinson were the last two in the ring. Jay White then attacks MJF. Juice then hits Max with the ring. And Juice Robinson ultimately eliminates Max Caster. And your winner of the match is Juice Robinson. A couple things I'm going to say about Dynamite, man, before I get out of here. Number one, it was a decent night. It wasn't a bad night last night for Dynamite. But there's definitely a couple question marks for me personally. MJF, man. MJF was a hot topic last night for some reason, man. A lot of people want an opportunity against MJF, being Kenny Omega. He also mentioned MJF last night. The biggest one that I took away from was Wardlow. I don't know. Look, I mentioned this last week, man, and I'm going to reiterate this one more time. I think, Wardlow is on the short track list to go to WWE. I don't really think AEW really have any idea on what the hell they really want to do with Wardlow. I really don't. I think right now, with all due respect to Wardlow, he is in no shape or form to be going up against a guy like MJF right now. I understand before and the storyline that led up to it, but MJF is a whole different animal than what he was when they first faced off. And he's also the current, AEW World Heavyweight Champion and one half of the Ring of Honor Tag Team Champions. And MJF is a whole different athlete and different competitor than he once was when he faced off with Wardlow back in the day. Now, does Wardlow deserve a title shot? Hell no. Hell no, man. Look, and I've said this about Wardlow too. When he became TNT champion and he was kind of having this, Goldberg kind of deal, and he still does. A lot of the fans still chant Wardlow, how he, same way they used to chant Goldberg's name back in like 97, 98. But I feel like the morale, if you will, around Wardlow, it's just not there. It's just not. I feel like, unfortunately, with Wardlow, he doesn't really have a high ceiling in AEW. I don't think it's there. And I don't think it's completely Wardlow's fault. I just think creatively they have nothing else more left for Wardlow, in my honest opinion. His TNT championship run was trash, to be honest. I mean, the fact that they kept hot potato in that championship, it's unreal. I mean, at this point, it's AEW World Championship, then the International Championship. It's no longer, TNT Championship's not even in the conversation anymore. It's just not. And I don't know if it's like, Tony Khan has a certain feeling around the TNT Championship because of Cody Rhodes and what happened with that, and Cody Rhodes leaving to go over to WWE. I have no idea, but the TNT Championship doesn't have, when he was carrying it, it didn't have that morale around the title. Now, what Christian Cage is doing with the TNT Championship is absolutely hilarious, and in many ways. And what he's doing with it, he's bringing a little bit more spotlight to the title, in my honest opinion. I think what Christian Cage is doing right now is red hot. He's one of the best heels in AEW right now, hands down. And with him holding that TNT Championship, it only gives more spotlight to not only Christian, but that title. But Wardlow saying that he wants to go against MJF, man, you better get in the back of the line, brother. I'm sorry, man. I'm not trying to be mean to the dude, but I'm not gonna lie about it, man. He's not ready for a title shot. He's not ready to be in the same ring right now with MJF. It's just hell no. I'm sorry. And I don't understand why everybody's like, all right, well, I'm going to go up against MJF and yada, yada, yada. I know, obviously he has a match coming up in Full Gear with Jay White. And honestly, for what it's worth, Jay White is, to me, number one contender for MJF. Jay White's had a hell of a run so far in AEW. He's doing fantastic work with Bullet Club Gold. Yeah. But I do not put Wardlow in that conversation. And I think a lot of people, y'all may agree or disagree, but there ain't no way in hell that Wardlow deserves a title shot against MJF. No shot. No way. Other things I took away from last night was Adam Cole and Roderick Strong. I don't really know where they're going with this, to be honest with you. I'm still apprehensive. I wouldn't even say apprehensive. I'm still kind of locked in almost on the fact that it was Adam Cole that did attack Jay White backstage. They're not really doing anything else with that right now. So I don't know what's going on with that. Who did attack Jay White backstage in the Devil's Mask? Lance Archer, again, great to see him back. But I'm worried about Lance Archer too, man. It kind of goes hand in hand with Wardlow. What do you do with Lance Archer? Because in the beginning, Lance Archer, when he was working with Jake the Snake Roberts, man, it was great. And they built up Lance Archer to be a powerhouse. And I don't know what's going. I haven't seen Jake Roberts in a while. I don't know what they're going to do with Lance Archer. They just brought him back. But again, who knows where they're going to go with Lance Archer as well. The biggest thing I had to say, honestly, from Dynamite last night, and I think you guys can agree with me, is Sting. I think, what Sting did and dropped the bomb on everybody saying that, he's going to retire after Revolution 2024. It was a bomb drop. At first I didn't think he was going to retire. Not at least not last night or announce the retirement last night. I had no idea what he was going to do or what he was going to say. For what it's worth, man, there's a lot of fans, like I said earlier, that are fans of Sting, myself included. He's had a hell of a career. Hall of Fame career, Hall of Fame caliber talent. The guy, the amount of matches that Sting has had have been absolutely legendary. The matches he had with Flair, matches he's had with, with Hogan, Goldberg, the whole NWO thing, when Sting turned into what we all see him as now, the Crow Sting. I mean, that whole transformation for him was awesome. And God, man, even matches he had in TNA with Samoa Joe and AJ Styles, Kurt Angle, matches in WWE. He had the match with Seth Rollins. He had that little match with Triple H. I mean, he's had a hell of a career. I mean, obviously, there's, that's still that one match that's like, man, I wish that match would have happened. And I think everybody can agree with me on this, that it should have been Sting versus Taker. It would have been a classic. I mean, can you imagine having Undertaker and Sting in the same ring at, say, 97, 98? Whew, man. You want to talk about a blockbuster matchup. Wow. And it's one of those things where, I wonder, even with current wrestlers and old school wrestlers back in the day, everybody talks about their their Mount Rushmore of wrestling, would Sting be on those people's list? A lot of people have like Andre on that list and Hogan and Flair. And to be honest with you, man, I don't know. Even if someone were to ask me who's your Mount Rushmore in wrestling, man, I don't know. I really don't know. I will say this. I don't know if, and again, this might be a hot take. I don't know if Hogan's on my list. That's just me personally. I had nothing against Hogan. But I will say this, and I'll say this in confidence. Randy Savage is definitely on my list as far as Mount Rushmore. 100%. I would say him and probably Dusty Rhodes. Because I'm going to let y'all know this, man. Dusty Rhodes, if you guys don't know, and obviously you guys are here and watch this show because you guys are fans of wrestling, which I'm very grateful for and very blessed that you guys are here listening to the show. But Dusty Rhodes, man, he meant a lot of things to a lot of people during his career and even after his in-ring career was over, man. The mind that Dusty Rhodes had for the business, phenomenal. I mean, the shows that he created, Starrcade, The Great American Bash, to just name a couple, to be honest with you, that he did, that he created. He had a mind for the business. And I've stated this from the very beginning when I first, once I finally figured out how the whole wrestling thing worked and stuff like that. Once, obviously when you're a kid, you're not really thinking about that. You're just thinking about, oh man, I really want to see my favorite wrestler tonight, and what's going to happen, and oh well, my favorite wrestler got beat up by this person. What's going to happen next week? You're not in that mindset when you're a kid, like the business side of pro wrestling and the storylines that go into it and stuff like that. And as time goes on, if you do get invested in it, you obviously want to know more to what the hell is going on. And I just think Dusty Rhodes had a great mind for the business. So I had to put him on, again, with Randy Savage on my Mount Rushmore. The rest of them, I mean, it's still up in the air, man. But I think Dusty and Randy are up there for me. Randy Savage is my all-time favorite wrestler, just so y'all know that. And I'm not really going off accolades and stuff like that. I just think what Randy Savage did in professional wrestling, the charisma that he had, the voice, the promos, the matches. And look, and again, this might be a very hot take for most people, but I'm going to let y'all know this. That WrestleMania match that he had with Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, I think it surpassed what Hogan and Andre did. As far as match quality, yeah, I think it was the better match. There are some people that are saying that match between Randy Savage and Ricky the Dragon Steamboat was probably one of the best matches of all time. And I think it's really hard to argue that, to be honest with you. I mean, I have all the respect in the world for Hogan and Andre. It was a great storyline. But as far as match quality, I got to give it to Randy Savage and Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. And Steamboat, to me, is one of those guys, at least in my opinion, severely underrated. Severely underrated. It's the same thing with Roddy Piper. I think a lot of people, Roddy Piper should have been multi-time world champion, in my honest opinion. Great heel. The matches he had with Brett, matches he had with Jimmy Superfly Snuka. Come on, man. Come on. I mean, Piper's a legend. Absolute legend. But besides all that, I mean, Dynamite, like I said, it was solid last night. And again, the big elephant in the room is Sting. Sting's announcing his retirement after Revolution 2024. And a lot of people now are saying, who's going to be that person that Sting's going to go up against in his last match? I don't know. In my opinion, I don't know who he's going to go up against. But I will say this. I truly do believe that in some capacity, in his last match, Darby Allin has to be a part of that. I think Darby Allin needs to be a part of Sting's last match, because Sting has been grooming Darby Allin since Sting has come into the fold with AEW. And Sting has been helping Darby Allin out, and Darby Allin has also been helping Sting out. And I think Darby, I can't speak on Darby Allin, but I can just speak from what I've seen on television and what I've seen from Sting and Darby. I think when Sting came in, obviously I'm sure Sting was probably kind of nervous. He's the veteran coming in with all these, young guys, and they're doing all these crazy moves, especially Darby Allin. And I think when Darby, was working with Sting, I think it brought a new life to Sting as far as his professional wrestling career. And I think towards the end, God, man, those vignettes were awesome. I remember the cinematic match they had. It was Darby and Sting versus Brian Cage and Ricky Starks, when Brian Cage and Ricky Starks were on Team Taz. And how great that match was put together in that warehouse and everything else like that. It was a fantastic match, man. Again, Sting's had a hell of a career. I don't know how much more I can say about what more I can say about Sting. Sting's had a hell of a career. Phenomenal moments. Excuse me. Obviously him turning into the Crow Sting. And you want to talk about a storyline, man. Holy shit. That storyline between him and Hogan that led up to Starrcade, that was a whole year. That was a whole year that you didn't hear a damn thing from Sting. Nothing. All you saw was Sting in the rafters or coming down from the rafters to confront Hogan. But Sting never said anything. Nothing. For a whole year leading up to Starrcade. You want to talk about long-term booking? Holy shit, man. That was, incredible. Incredible. And Sting was one of those guys, he was a lifer for WCW, man. He rode with WCW from the early days, early days, well before it became WCW. All the way until WCW closed up doors, man. Sting is that dude, man. Sting is a loyal dude. And he stuck with them for the good times and the bad. So you got to give credit where credit's due, man. Sting is an absolute legend. And again, I look forward to what's going to happen next with Sting. Who is going to be the final opponent for Sting? And I really want y'all to think about that, man. Who do you think will be Sting's final opponent when it comes to Revolution 2024? Who will be across the ring from him in his last match? All I will say about that, like I said earlier, Darby Allin better be a part of something in that last match for Sting. Whether it's Sting versus Darby Allin or Darby Allin's ringside, Darby needs to be there for Sting's last match. The other thing I want to get into quickly, too, NWA. Now, I know you guys are going to be kind of shocked by this, but when I started this podcast stuff, man, I really did get into what NWA and Billy Corgan were doing with NWA Power and stuff like that. And, I'm talking about from the beginning days of NWA when they came back and started their YouTube run on Tuesdays at 6:05. And they had great talent, man. They had great talent on that show, from Nick Aldis to Tim Storm to James Storm to Eddie Kingston. Ricky Starks was also a part of the early days of NWA Power. They had the talent, man. Great talent. And then it kind of took, a wrong turn, in my opinion. When the United Wrestling Network Primetime Live came around, it was just awful. And, I was covering NWA from, I believe it was NWA Carneyland, one of their pay-per-views that they had, or one of their premiere shows they had. And it was great in the beginning, man, but suddenly it just took a really sharp left turn into it being complete shit. In my opinion, I'm not trying to bag on the talent or anything else like that. It just, NWA was not the same for what I originally saw it was and what it is now. But there was a lot of speculation about NWA getting a TV deal on Primetime Network. And come to find out, it's actually true. NWA actually signed not one, but two TV deals, not streaming deals, TV deals with the CW network. So I don't know if that's going to take place next year, early next year or not, but they will be on TV. I don't know what time slot or what day, but they will be on the CW network. So, again, hats off to Billy Corgan and the NWA for getting that and getting that accomplishment and being on TV. And I mentioned this about NWA back in the day, man, that without a TV deal, it's not, you're not going to get a lot of notoriety in the business. And NWA's making moves, man. They are. Billy Corgan and NWA, you got to give credit where credit's due. They're making moves. Because not only did they sign a TV deal, but they're also going back to their old format and doing the territories now. So I think they're going after small independent wrestling companies right now that might need some help or might want to join forces with Billy Corgan and NWA, and now they'll be affiliated with NWA as a whole. And I think that's what Billy Corgan's, trying to do. And you know what? Hats off to Billy Corgan. I think it's the best way for him to stay in the wrestling business, to keep NWA relevant, especially with them being on the CW network. I don't know how much people watch the CW network anymore. But again, for them to be on TV, obviously they're doing something right. I think currently right now their world champion is EC3, which again, the guy can wrestle. And he's a great world champion. I know Matt Cardona was over at NWA for a while as well. He was carrying the 10 pounds of gold as well. They got a solid foundation over there in NWA. So they're making moves. They're definitely making moves. I'm not sitting here saying either that I'm going to start covering NWA. But I'm going to give credit where credit's due, man. Hats off to Billy Corgan and NWA for getting the TV deal. And hopefully things work out for NWA. But I also wanted to get that little sidebar out for you guys, too. If you guys didn't know what was going on with NWA, if you guys were interested in that, that's the news I got about NWA as far as them signing a TV deal and going back to the old format of going after small territories and trying to be affiliated with NWA and stuff like that as far as these small independent companies. And I think NWA and Billy Corgan are trying to help them out and vice versa. So it's going to be great to see what happens with NWA with the new format and with them being on TV, especially the CW network. So again, pretty cool. But all in all, it was a solid Dynamite last night. But with that being said, this is my review of AEW's Dynamite. I hope you guys are out there staying safe. Be careful and remember, stay classic. Peace.